Hey, what's going on YouTube? I hope everyone out there is having a good day. My name is Kieran Tross and I'm your host for today's video. So I'm doing something a little different. If any of you have clicked on the videos before, some of you are cloud scholars who've watched my videos pertaining to Azure and how to set up things like conditional access, do things within your storage account, and do a lot of different things with creating resources. But I wanted to go a little bit higher level and just talk about technology, not really go into deep dive of how you do things, but really talk about technology because there's an audience out there. And I've talked to a bunch of different people who are saying, well, how do you get into cybersecurity? What are the different pathways, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm like, hey, there are people that need to find out and are looking to make changes. Perhaps you lost a job due to COVID. You are just looking for a new change in life. And this is what I want to help people out with. So this is the reason why I wanted to start this podcast. And this one is our first episode, which is how to get into cybersecurity. So once again, I want to introduce myself. My name is Kieran Tross. I've been working in IT for over 10 years, 16 years to be specific. I've worked as a computer specialist, started off with break fix, printers, computers. I was working in Midtown Manhattan. Worked as a senior IT support engineer. I've worked as an IT director, overseeing a 3-hospital healthcare system. And I've worked as an identity access management, cybersecurity consultant. And right now I'm working as an Azure cloud architect. So cybersecurity is the mechanisms that an organization, or even a person, I should say, uses to prevent someone from a threat actor from getting into their organization and stealing data. So this is a really big topic right now. It's something that everyone's talking about. And the reason why is because every time you go on Twitter or you go in the news, you're hearing about another company getting hacked. And not even just companies, people are just getting hacked from their email accounts, right? From phishing attacks and all types of different stuff. So how do you really get into cybersecurity? If you've never heard of cybersecurity, or you've heard about it, but you don't really understand it, I want to kind of talk about different ways that you can use strategies actually, that you can use to get into cybersecurity, because there's a lot of falses out there. There's a lot of people talking about, hey, one thing I've always heard is you've got to be good at math, which is not true, right? You can work in cybersecurity and not even touch any math at all, right? But I want to make sure that I come up with like 5 different ways that you could get into cybersecurity, or different strategies I would use to get into cybersecurity. And honestly, none of them really pertain to school, right? I'm not going to tell you, hey, go get, a degree or go to some college. You can learn a lot on YouTube. Like, for instance, Cloud Scholars, right? I teach a lot when it comes to Azure Cloud. I may jump into a little bit AWS and GCP, not really sure at this moment, but I do a lot of things within Azure Cloud. So what are my top 5 things that I would say that you can do? My advice for you to get into cybersecurity. All right, so number 1, right? This is identify your career path, and I want to make sure I have my notes right here so I don't forget anything. So it's really, the first thing is planning. Just like anything you do in life, you need to plan first. You can't just get up and just start doing something. You need to have a blueprint, right? Anybody who's designing a building, they have a plan. They find out, okay, what do we want to build? Where are we building it? And they have a whole blueprint. Identify your career path. And I know you're probably saying, well, I don't know. This is one of the best times for you. Even though you don't know, it's great because now you can look at different things within IT and say, okay, what am I interested in, right? So when it comes to cybersecurity, one thing I always suggest to people whenever they ask me about it, I always say, look to the cloud. And you want to think of not just now, but how do you want your lifestyle in the next couple of years, right? So what caused you to get into cybersecurity? Perhaps you were in a job where you were driving, doing Uber, or you were driving all the time, or you were constantly going into the office, or perhaps you are doing some kind of manual labor. You don't want to do that anymore, and it's causing some health issues, your back, or something like that. I'm just throwing things out. Identify what you don't want, and then visualize a life that you want to have later on, because that will help you with understanding, okay, where do you want to go? Because you not only think about your 9 to 5, but you also want to think about what kind of lifestyle you have. Do you want to see your kids more? Do you want to have some more free time to yourself? When you're working in cybersecurity, or if you're working in the cloud, I should say, you get to work remotely, right? There's a lot of remote jobs. So perhaps they say you might have to come to the office 2 days out the week rather than 5 days out the week. That's saving you a lot of money on cost versus like traveling all the time, going into the office, food, all that other stuff. So I would say identify your career path, take lifestyle into the equation as well, but then also think about what are you going to learn. So for instance, the three major clouds are AWS, GCP, which is Google Cloud, AWS is Amazon, and then you have Azure, which is Microsoft. So I would say, okay, so think about the foundation, understanding, like just Googling, hey, YouTube, Azure learning, and type in something like Azure Foundation learning. And there's a ton of different videos that you can watch. You can read up on some topics as well, but you can watch some topics and then say, okay, what does this look like? Start off with like creating a computer within the cloud, a virtual machine, and then take it from there and then learn something else. But I would say keep with it, right? When you're identifying your career path, you need to make sure that you're saying, okay, I'm looking into all three of these Azure clouds, or I'm looking in, not all three of these Azure clouds, but all three of these cloud areas, right? Which is AWS, GCP, or Azure, and choosing which one makes a little bit more sense to you, even from a GUI standpoint, as a graphic user interface standpoint. But I would say identify your career path, really look at where you want to go and start taking some classes and see which one piques your interest. Okay, so number two, now that you've identified your career path and you're like, okay, this is the route I want to go within cybersecurity, or getting into IT, I should say, you want to gain the hands-on experience. And you might be saying to yourself, well, how can I gain the hands-on experience when I haven't even gotten a job yet? You can get the hands-on experience, and it's so easily. This is one of the reasons why I would never tell somebody go into college for this, because you're going to spend a whole lot of money. And honestly, I don't know how well college is going to prepare you for this, because things are changing so much. College isn't going to be able to change their criteria or their classes in the pace of the way technology is going. So gain the hands-on experience. So Azure, right, Microsoft says, okay, if you want to create a tenant within Microsoft, you can spend they'll give you $200 free credit. And that $200 you can use to build machines, break machines, create storage accounts, all this other stuff, right? And I'm probably saying stuff that you do not know of at the moment, but when you start going in and learning these things, you can say, oh, okay, I know that's creating different resources within Azure. I'm just kind of keeping it to Azure because that's really what my home base is. So I would say gain the hands-on experience. You can go and learn these different toolings, right, from just on YouTube. Just type in YouTube and say, okay, how to create a free account within Microsoft for Azure. And we have a video, right? I teach a video on that as well, where it talks about the Azure portal. I go through the interface of the Azure portal, and I also show you as well how to get your $200 free credit. Number three is network. It is so important for you to network in order to get into the doors of these companies. So if you don't have a LinkedIn account, create a LinkedIn account. I'm telling you right now, it's one of the best things that you can do. Join different groups within LinkedIn. So there are Azure groups within LinkedIn. There are different learning groups within LinkedIn. Even if you go on Facebook, there are different groups there within Azure, and people are posting different stuff about the classes they're teaching, or they're posting about job opportunities, so on and so forth. And then also I would say try to connect with recruiters, right? Recruiters are constantly looking to fill open positions. So the more recruiters you know, the better for you. So try to get recruiters like Robert Half. There's a ton of different ones out there, recruiting companies that, they'll have entry-level positions. So you can say, oh, okay, reach out to recruiters, send them your resume. And then also one other thing I would tell you is, while you're on LinkedIn, look up jobs pertaining to what you identified in step one, which is identifying your career path, your plan, right? Look up jobs that are associated with that plan so that you can now say, oh, okay, this is a skill set they're looking for. That will definitely help you out. Number four is learning. So if you are going to jump into cybersecurity, jumping into IT, you're going to constantly learn. So one thing about me is last year I got 4 IT certifications. I think it was Microsoft 365 Security, Microsoft Solutions Architect Expert. It was Azure Security as well. And I'm trying to remember what the last one was. It might have been an Okta certification. I'm not really sure. But what I'm saying to you is learning is something you're going to constantly have to do. So constantly read, constantly watch videos, find different technology videos to subscribe to, Cloud Scholars. And you can definitely learn a lot from these different YouTube creators, right? These content creators. So I would say do some learning so that this way that you can build your skills. One thing that I like to follow, a principle I like to follow, is an hour a day. So I like to try to learn something and do an hour a day of just learning a new topic. So that this way, once you start the first day, it might not make too much sense to you. So let's say intro to Azure. You learn it from one location, right? One teacher. Then you go to somebody else on YouTube. You learn the same topic. You go to a third person. You learn the same topic. After a while, you realize all three of them start saying the same thing. They just have a different approach or a different way of speaking, right? And articulating that information. So what I would say is you have to be constantly learning. Do an hour a day. Obviously, you probably won't be able to do 7 days a week, depending if you have like kids and all this other stuff going on within your life. But I would say try to do at least 5 days a week and just an hour a day. And I guarantee you, after a month, you'll start noticing a difference, right? At first, this is gonna, like anything else, when you first start doing something you don't know, and it's pretty difficult. But after a month you stay with it, then the language starts to get a little easier for you, and when you'll start to understand things a little bit better. When you first start, you're probably Googling certain terminology, like what does that mean? But try to find somebody that talks to you in your language, right? Find a teacher or a YouTube content creator that can provide you the information where they break down the data so that this way it's easy to digest. When I'm teaching, I try to teach in a way that makes sense to anyone. I try to make sure it's easily digestible because you get to a point of getting to a higher level and then you kind of forget about how you were when you were at level 2, when you're at like a level 100, just kind of throwing it in there from that number perspective. So what I would say is learning is my tip number 4 for getting into cybersecurity. Okay, so last but not least is certifications. Certifications are huge in cybersecurity. People tend to look at your resume a little bit closer when they see the certifications. Not really sure too much about the degrees, and I know people are probably gonna fight me on that one, but you can have the degrees, but then when they see the certification, it kind of just amplifies your resume a little bit more because the certifications are directly about that skill set. So one certification that's really huge is the CISSP. There's also SANS organization has certifications, which is the GIAC cybersecurity certification. I'm actually looking to probably take one of those next year. There's ethical hacker certification. If you choose whichever cloud route you're going, whether it's Microsoft, AWS, GCP, they have a ton of certifications that you can take over there. And then if you sign up for any of their newsletters, sometimes they'll give you a free voucher. So your first time taking the test, hopefully you pass, is going to be free, and then you get a certification. And once you get a certification, definitely post it on LinkedIn. It's really good to have so that this way people can notice you. And recruiters are constantly on LinkedIn. So you'll probably start getting hit up by recruiters saying, hey, we have this contract, which is for AWS, Solutions Architect, blase, 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 so on and so forth. All right, folks, that is my top 5 tips to getting into cybersecurity. I understand many of you are walking on new grounds, which can be shaky at times. So I want to leave you with a motivational quote to end this video, which is by, who's this by? Oliver Wendell Holmes. I hope I got it right. And it says, a man's mind, a woman, mind once stretched by a new idea never regains its original dimensions. So stay focused, keep pushing. If you have any questions or anything like that, leave it in the comments. I'd love to hear your feedback about how you felt about this video. And if there's anything specific in cybersecurity that you're looking to learn. And if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, I talked about networking earlier. I'm definitely willing to do that. The way I look at it is you can learn from anyone, even if you start in cybersecurity this year or this month or whatever. In a year or two, you might reach out to me and say, hey, Kieran, hey, I know about this job here, or hey, Kieran, did you know about this new Azure technology that's coming out? Whatever, it doesn't really matter. We all can learn from each other. We all can help each other out. So what I want to do is, be at the forefront of helping build a community, so that this way we all can grow together. So I want to thank you for watching this video and see you next time. Peace.